Kyrie Irving, number 1 overall pick, 2011. Had good time with the Cavs, went to the Celtics, has been around Brooklyn, now in Dallas. Very storied career, very highlight heavy player, very popular player. But is he a Hall of Fame caliber player? Let me know.
I'm gonna be honest. I'd say no, and the reason why I will say no is because a guy like Chauncey Billups isn't quite in the Hall of Fame yet, and if you look past the flash and the, I guess you could say modern day Allen Iverson that is Kyrie Irving, his career kind of sort of matches up with a guy like Chauncey Billups. And if Chauncey Billups isn't quite in yet, I don't see a guy like Kyrie. They have the same amount of all NBA teams. Kyrie does have 2 more All-Star games and the Rookie of the Year, but Chauncey has a Finals MVP and 2 All Defensive Second Team selections to Kyrie 0. So I think it does even out in terms of that Finals MVP and those All Defensive selections. And being that Chauncey isn't in, I can't really quite give the nod to Kyrie. And with Kyrie, I might give him the nod if he played more and did more with regard to his college career, because as we know, it's the Basketball Hall of Fame, not the NBA Hall of Fame. But he didn't really do much in his college career either. Um, Another guard, Tim Hardaway, he's a guy who has 2 less All-Star games, but he has 2 more All-NBA selections, including a first team selection. He's not a Hall of Famer. Kevin Johnson, he's also a guy that could be considered with 3 All-Star selections, 4 All-NBA selections, and he's 6th all-time in terms of assists. He's not a Hall of Famer. So those guys right there are the same kind of category where I would put Kyrie. And being that they haven't made the Hall of Fame yet, I don't think Kyrie's quite there yet, unfortunately.
I'm going to counter that because I do believe Kyrie is going to end up in the Hall of Fame. And I get what you're saying because there is a lot of flash to Kyrie's game. It is a very highlight-friendly game that does tend to make him a little bit more highly rated at times than he would be otherwise when you're talking about a legacy case. The biggest thing that I think will help him in his Hall of Fame case is the fact that he has that ring. He played very well in that final series and in the playoff run in general for the most part. He hit an iconic shot in that ring, or in that getting that ring, and whether you can argue one shot shouldn't change a Hall of Fame case that much, I would agree, but it's probably going to leave some amount of an imprint, and he's forever going to be attached to LeBron, which, given how much gravity LeBron holds throughout the NBA as a whole, is also going to have its impact. The other thing when we talk about Kyrie and where he's at today, he's still only 31. He's still playing great basketball. And assuming that he can still stay healthy for a few more years, his resume is only going to continue to improve over the next few years. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a couple of more All-Star appearances, assuming that him and Luka and the Mavericks as a whole can be a little bit more successful over the next couple of years and can be high enough in the standings for him to get into those. So I think his resume is going to have a little bit more improvement yet. And quite frankly, even though he is a flashy player and he is the highlight reel guy, he has been a very good scorer and a very efficient scorer, especially for his position throughout the majority of his career, at a much higher efficiency than most guys ever are at his position. When they get to that type of productivity and that type of scoring level, to be flirting with the type of efficiency numbers he has been for the majority of his career, specifically through his prime, is just not that common. So that's another thing I consider for him. But the biggest thing, like I was talking to earlier with Gabe for a bit, that carries his berth in the Hall of Fame is the fact that he got that ring, was so good in that finals, and it's tied next to LeBron, which probably shouldn't help, but because it's LeBron, probably does give him a bit of an edge.
Yeah, I agree. I think that he is a Hall of Famer, but just barely. I think the fact that he did play with LeBron, as you were saying, is really going to put him over that edge of if their career, or if his career ended today. I think him playing with LeBron is going to put him in the Hall of Fame because of the publicity that he got from playing with LeBron. LeBron's no doubt Hall of Famer, obviously. when you play with a guy of that caliber, I don't really discredit you for not having a Finals MVP because you were playing with arguably the best player of all time. And if you did get that Finals MVP, then even more credit to you, but he didn't. With that being said, his career isn't over yet, as Devin was saying. There's multiple seasons here. I say he's probably another at least 3 years of very good basketball, all-star level basketball. So if he ends his career with 11 all-star appearances, 3 All-NBA appearances, an all-star game MVP for whatever that's worth, I don't value that all too much. Rookie of the year. He's an NBA champion, as we all know, was very good in the finals, as Devin was saying. I just don't see any way he's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think you all bring up really good points when it comes to why he should or why he shouldn't. I think for me, he's just a very interesting case because even at his peak, I feel like Kyrie was maybe top 15. I don't know if he was ever a top 10 player in the league. And to say like, oh, you're a Hall of Fame level player and to never be top 10, it's like, oh, like that's kind of weird. And that's why, I mean, you got to think about it, like saying like all NBA is the top 15 players in the league is a scuffed argument because we know it's a lot more guard heavy, especially. But generally to say, you know, you've only made the All NBA team 3 times. I mean, top 6 of your position, like you would think you want to at least be on that list for an extended period of time. And that's something that he doesn't really have. But where it comes into play is kind of a big thing with Devin's argument. And it's that fact that it's the Hall of Fame. And while the stats may not all be there and all align, especially accolade-wise, he is such a famous player that his impact on the game, I think, is almost bigger than what his career numbers and accolades show. For me, I look around and when you just see people you know that want to play, who do they want to play like? They want to have Kyrie's handles. You know, a lot of people I know wear Kyrie's shoes. Like his impact on just regular non-NBA basketball players, it's huge. It's ginormous. And then just like that shot in the 2016 finals, I hate to say it, that's one of the biggest moments in the history of basketball. That's a Hall of Fame moment. And the fact that he was able to go to like 3 finals in a row as well. I know he got injured very quickly in the first one, but he was a part of some very high-level finals runs. It's just the fact that he wasn't that number one guy for really any of them. And his success as a number one guy was very limited. You see his days in Boston, they really underperformed. He was injured the first year there. And then since like outside of that, I mean, it was like just the early Cleveland days where they weren't really expected to do anything. So of course him as the number one guy didn't go very far, but that's not really something you hold against him. I think what happens in Dallas could almost make or break the case. And this might be a hot take because he's a pretty made man. But say he plays like 4 or 5 years in Dallas and they consistently underperform, people might begin to kind of lower the way they view Kyrie Irving. And I think that's something you guys aren't really talking about when you say, oh, he has more time left. Well, that could also raise him up. But there's also a chance where enough playoff underperformances can make you say, oh, like, is he really as good as we say? We know they kind of fell downhill as soon as he got there. Now, I think they'll be better now that he's there. But when talking about an active player, there is always that uncertainty of, oh, what happens next and what happens now? And you look at the long term and it's, oh, you know, he made 8 All-NBA games because he had really flashy handles and was very popular. But when it comes to just who's the actual best player in the league on the All-NBA teams, which I think we can all agree is more important, he was not that caliber level player for very long.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I think the All-NBA selections to me is, I mean, him having 3 is like, whether we like it or not, and yes, he was a very good player for a long time, 3 All-NBA selections is still a lot of All-NBA selections, right? And especially for the Basketball Hall of Fame, Kyrie Irving, his impact in basketball, as you were saying, Gabe, is just so large that it's like, I don't want to say his impact is bigger than like an Allen Iverson, but it almost is. In the day of social media, with how it is today, like everybody wants to have the handles of Kyrie. People were saying that about Iverson before Kyrie was big, but we're seeing every social media headline, this guy has Kyrie handles. This guy dribbles like Kyrie. that's something that a lot of NBA players do not have on their side, and especially when talking about the Basketball Hall of Fame, publicity and popularity is a big portion of that.
I get that, but I don't think he's quite at the Allen Iverson level. That's one aspect where yes, I do give you the fact that Kyrie's handle is generational. There are many people that wear his shoes to this day, and I'm sure there are many people that are going to wear his new shoe now that he's signed with Anta overseas. But with Allen Iverson, he not only did people want to do his crossover, but everyone wanted cornrows. Everyone wanted a shooting sleeve. Everyone wanted it. It was much. It was on a much larger scale with AI. So I don't want to go into that territory, but I understand Kyrie's impact, but in the grand scheme of things, I just think there's other players throughout history that they may have been better basketball players in their totality, and their resume might also be very close to Kyrie's, and they're not Hall of Famer. So that's kind of what it comes down to for me, at least.
I also have another question for you guys that is very Kyrie specific and hard to compare, I think, specifically to other players. There's been players with controversy around them before, but especially recently, with how public the controversy around Kyrie has been, if that were to say continue, because right now you could say, oh, it was just like the flat earth stuff was just kind of stupid, but like more so like last season specifically was really more of a bigger deal. And then even throughout like all the COVID stuff, there was just the whole big thing with that. If there was, say, controversy to continue with Kyrie Irving, do you think that would affect his Hall of Fame chances at all?
Yeah.
I think it does, because ultimately at the end of the day, the people that select the Hall of Fame are the media members, and the media members are the main people saying that what Kyrie's been doing, it's antics and they're stupid, quote unquote, and ultimately that will hurt him. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that I don't think that should hinder how you view him as a basketball player, because how his beliefs and things like that have nothing to do with basketball, so to speak. So when those two kind of collide, that's when it kind of makes the Hall of Fame lose some of its integrity. But I do think it does ultimately hurt him, unfortunately.
I mean, I think of it the same way that I was talking about the popularity aspect of things. He's so popular, his crossover is popular, his shoes are popular, but anything he does will get attention, and that could affect him in a negative light. So if he continues to, do controversial stuff, you see it in baseball a lot with people taking steroids or doing other controversial things, and they will not be in the Hall of Fame. And I think the NBA, or the Basketball Hall of Fame rather, will be no different.